guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. I'm going to be rewinding it a little bit here, and I'm going to be talking about my negative experience with UShip. Recently, I moved from Georgia to Tennessee. In fact, that was around October 1st. I had hired a UShip driver to transport my tiny house originally, but that went wrong, so I would like to share my story today about everything that happened. In this video, I'll also be sharing some tips with you if you want to hire a transport person on UShip, as well as some things that you should watch out for if hiring on UShip. I hope this video is helpful for you, and let's get to it. First things first, when I was asked to leave the homestead and stay in Georgia, I started looking for tiny house transport companies as well as maybe friends that could do it. I got a suggestion from a friend that said they used UShip, so I went on UShip and I started with the bidding. When you go on UShip, you put your post out and you say what you want done, where you want moved, any details, and people come on there and they bid on your job. For my tiny house transport, I had to move my 28-foot by 8-foot tiny house to Tennessee from Georgia. About 3 or 4 people bid on it. The prices that were coming in were really low, pretty much in the 400 range. In my mind, I'm always trying to do things as affordable as possible. That's one reason why I went on UShip, was to find somebody who could do this that wasn't necessarily a company that wasn't going to charge you an arm and a leg. Now, mind you, people on UShip, there are personal people doing these transports, but there are also companies. And I found a company called Old Number 7 Transport. I have some other things behind it, but they bid about 2 or 3 times with different prices, and I ended up choosing their lowest bid. I kept in contact with the people who I hired. I was calling their office, and the wife and I were texting. She would ask me little questions. How much does it weigh? How much, is it ready to be pulled away? I said, yes, it's ready to be pulled out of its spot. We will have the utilities unhooked. I'll have the cable unhooked. Everything will be done. I will have the new emergency cord attached to the hitch, and everything should be ready to go. It was my understanding that everything that we had talked about was all I needed to do to prep the house to be taken away. Moving day arrives. This company from UShip came to the homestead and stay that I was staying at. They brought their truck back to the house and proceeded to hook the house up. The truck that these 2 guys arrived in was a 3500. I don't know what it was called, but it was this really dinky little truck. The homestead owner said that he didn't think that that truck was going to be able to pull my house, but they assured everyone that yes, once they got hooked up, pulled out of my spot, that they would be able to confidently take my house down the road and travel it to Tennessee. When they finally hooked up to my house, instead of making a right-hand turn to go out, they made a left-hand turn deeper into the woods to try to find a spot to turn around. Honestly, according to everybody that was there, the onlookers, this was a bad idea because it wasn't on the way out. They couldn't find a spot to turn around deeper in the woods. They ended up backing the tiny house all the way out to the parking lot of the homestead, and it was suggested that he turn the house around in the empty parking lot. There was tons of room out there. this guy, I don't know what he was thinking about. Nobody knew what he was thinking about. He ended up driving forward all the way back deeper into the woods to try to find a spot to turn around again. We didn't understand why he missed the opportunity to turn around in a clear area. He went deeper in the woods where there were more close trees. He ended up getting stuck and sandwiched horizontally between two trees deeper into the woods. So this truck could not make it out. This was somebody that I hired from UShip. I will be getting a full refund because they cannot make it. So I have to hire somebody else to get this house unstuck. I'll be leaving on Saturday morning instead of today. By this time, more people had gotten involved. The homestead owner had actually called his friend to come and see if he could get me out of this horizontal stuck spot. We were going to do it with his truck because he had a four-wheel drive truck, whereas this 3500 truck was not four-wheel drive. So we all were watching these two guys try to turn my house around. In the process of trying to turn the house around, they jackknifed my house. The tires were spinning, the rocks, dirt, and he could not get the house out. That little tiny truck did not have enough power to turn the house around, let alone to pull the house. The homestead owner's friend suggested that they do cut down a couple trees because that would be the only way that my house would get out of that spot. They value their trees, so I was really upset that they had to do this. By jackknifing my house, they ended up doing damage to my tiny house. Now, mind you, it was only two 1x4s that were basically unattached from my storage on the outside of my tiny house, but they also burned their bumper into the back of my house. When they were trying to get it unjackknifed and out of the horizontal position in the trees, the house actually fell nose forward. They had a jack get caught underneath the house, so that was another problem. And right after that happened, they left. I was talking to the homestead owner in the community house. All of a sudden, we see their truck leave with them in it. Didn't tell me anything, didn't tell me that they weren't coming back, didn't tell me I'm sorry about the damage. They just left. Their jack was still underneath the house. They said, "We cannot move your house. There is no way that we are going to move your house." Now, the homestead owner said, "Why did you hook up your truck to her house if you knew you weren't going to take it?" They said that I was misleading about the information that I gave them about my house, which is very untrue. I gave them all the information in the original post as well as via text, talking to the office about all the details. I'm not happy with the transport company on UShip. I did get a full refund, but this is what the area looks like. They had to cut down a tree in order to get a truck in here. And then it's basically made a nosedive into the gravel. It slipped off of the pieces of wood right there. A skid steer is on the way to pull her out. She's basically stuck, and she's been there for a couple hours now. And they had to take out a tree, which I feel terrible about. I was hoping they did not have to take out that tree because that's the tree that got them stuck. There's damage. He was jackknifed in here and his bumper did that. Now I'm stuck literally between two trees, and I'm stuck because I'm supposed to be leaving this homestead today. I have no transportation person. I don't know what to do. The homestead owners had cut down the two trees. The little white truck couldn't do anything, and the friend's black truck couldn't even get the house out, so he had to go home and get his skid steer, and that's what I decided to do to get the house unstuck. I hired the homestead owner's friend to turn the house around using this skid steer, the nose of the skid steer. It was like a shovel part that you can attach to it. He turned my entire house around with the skid steer. $500 later, that I was not expecting to spend because I wanted this other company from UShip to take my tiny house. $500 later, I had to pay the skid steer guy. He not only got my house out of the horizontal position that it was in, but during his moving my house, my tiny house jack squashed. It completely squished down. That was another issue that I had to deal with before moving my tiny house. So I had to go to the store and get another jack, which was $100, and I had to have the homestead owner and his friend install that. I had to wait a whole nother day in order to find another transport company to take my house to Tennessee, because you can't just call a transport company and have them drop everything to come and take you. So this had to be set up. So I ended up staying for another day, ended up hooking up to electric over by the community house where it was an easy out. I ended up hiring One Call Logistics. They ended up coming at 6 p.m. the next day. But I didn't end up getting to Tennessee until about 12 midnight or maybe 1 a.m. But the One Call Logistics, they had a really great truck. It was a 4-wheel drive. It was a huge truck, and he pulled it piece of cake. Now, while I was staying there another day, I decided to go on the UShip site and give bad feedback about these guys who I hired, and they just left. They damaged my house. They left. They got my house sandwiched horizontally in between 2 trees and just basically left me hanging. Bad customer service, I would not recommend this company at all. So I left a bad review. I got response back and ended up getting the 100% refund, but the company, Old Number 7 Transport, they ended up rebutting basically my feedback and said that I was misleading about the information I gave them about my house. And if I wanted to file a claim for the insurance, that they're not going to pay for it because I wasted their time. I asked for a refund in this feedback, and I also said I'd be contacting their insurance company to file a claim to get the money for the damages. I said I would be ready to be pulled out by the time they got here, and that was true. So I don't understand what their gripe was about that. They thought that I was going to be up on the street already. No, because that's me hiring somebody else to have to take me out of the spot to take me. No. The first time the guys took me from my spot and put me in my spot. So if you hire somebody from UShip, they take you out of your spot and put you into your new spot. Not have your house ready up by the street so they can easily pull you away. This new company cost about $1,000 on top of the $500 for the skid steer and the $100 for the new jack. $1,600 later, instead of the $475 that I was going to be paying the original UShip people, I'm now $1,600 later in my new spot. All in all, I guess it ended up working out. I ended up spending a lot more money than I thought I was going to spend, but the whole debacle at the old Homestead and Stay, it was just crazy. It makes me think that I should have never hired somebody on UShip to transport my tiny house. Now, some tips for if you do decide to use UShip. Number 1, make sure that the driver that you are hiring is licensed and insured. This simply means that if something happens to your tiny house in the process of transportation, that they are taking responsibility for the damage or anything that happens during the transport. Number 2, check the kind of truck they have if they're moving your tiny house. If they're moving some other kind of thing like a golf cart or your stuff inside your house, I'm sure that would be a little different, but if they are moving your actual house, you're going to want to make sure you check the type of truck that they have. I did not. I didn't even have the knowledge of what kind of truck could pull my house. I assumed that the professional company would know what kind of truck they would need to pull a house that size. They just didn't. So this is one thing that I am recommending, is definitely find out the kind of truck they have, because I didn't. Number 3, make sure that you tell them the height, length, width, and the weight of your tiny house before they hook up, before you hire them, so that they can determine if their truck or their timing or whatever they need to do on their end can actually pull your tiny house. Because a lot of times, until they see it in person, they don't know. It seemed like he didn't know. And even when he saw my house in person, he's like, oh yeah, we've got that, that'll be fine. Yet when he hooked up, it was nothing but just bad news from the rest of the day. Number 4, make sure that you have a plan B. I did not. So this is something that I learned. I had to hurry up and call a bunch of different transport companies to make sure that if they were either in the area, or I had to make sure they were licensed and insured. I had to make sure they were available, but make sure you have a backup plan to move your tiny house just in case plan A goes wrong. Number 5. Now, this is something that I didn't know either. Before I moved my tiny house, my insurance company recommended that I get travel insurance on my policy. I didn't do this because I assumed that the company that I was hiring, because they were licensed and insured, if something was to happen with the tiny house, that they would be the ones to cover it. I would contact either my insurance company or theirs, and everything would go through them. I ended up filing a claim through my insurance company and wanted them to go through their insurance company, because I almost had a feeling that if I tried to contact their insurance company, that they would deny me just because the truck guys said that I gave them false information. So if I gave the job to my insurance company and had it go through them, kind of like a lawyer, then they would do all the work, wouldn't need to speak to me, and couldn't deny me. What ended up happening was, because I didn't have that travel insurance on my policy, I couldn't put it through my insurance. They recommended me canceling the claim and going through their insurance. And I actually did not go through their insurance because the damage was it was definitely under $500. The burn is still on there. I'm having the wood replaced by the handyman that I've been hiring, but it was not going to be my deductible of, say, $1,000. So I think I would have ended up spending more money if I did file a claim, regardless if it was through their insurance company or mine. And when I talked to them, I was not able to get back through that insurance claim the $1,600 that I spent over the original amount that I was going to spend. This is all a really big lesson learned. I don't think I'm going to be hiring a transport driver to transport my house from UShip anymore. I think I'm going to be going with One Call Logistics again. They were really good, really good moving my house. And when he took it from the spot that it was in and put it in my new spot, he didn't move it once. He moved it there, dropped it. We didn't finagle it around. He did it perfectly the first time. So I highly recommend One Call Logistics when it comes to moving your tiny house. Now, I would still recommend using UShip for smaller transport items, say like my golf cart, or because that's the first time I had hired UShip. I spent $600 for them to transport my golf cart from Illinois to Georgia, and that was a 12-hour ride. So that only cost $600. If you have a friend who has a trailer on the back of their truck or can hook up a trailer on the back of their truck, you could use that. That's what I did the second time, is I hired my friends to actually come to Georgia to pick up the golf cart and the canopy stuff, and that was actually a lot cheaper than even hiring somebody on UShip. But I would still trust somebody to take a smaller amount of stuff on UShip because they don't need as big of a truck, so there isn't as many things that can go wrong. All in all, that was a really difficult experience for me, even though I was maybe 1 or 2 days late getting to my new spot and things went wrong. I spent some more money, had some stress involved there. I'd pretty much say this was a huge lesson learned. I don't think I'm going to be using UShip again to hire somebody to transport my tiny house. I'll still trust them for things like my golf cart transport or canopy transport. For moving a tiny house, I would no longer recommend UShip, even though it was recommended to me, and that's how the person had their tiny house moved. But maybe they did some more due diligence and, before hiring a transport person, and things went fine. Yeah, we're just gonna learn from this, and hopefully you guys can learn from it too, take some of my tips and apply them to your tiny house transport. If you guys like this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button below and click the notifications bell so you can receive a notification each time I post a new video, which is every Sunday. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next video. For my tiny house moving, the transport, don't put that. It's like a curtain. This video ends up being helpful for I started looking up, in case you guys are getting, hold on, don't put that, some tips and some precautionary, don't put some of those tips with you, don't put that.